Well, as far as stormy weather went across the country on Tuesday, we had some big thunderstorms in the Carolinas. There was some wind damage there from North into South Carolina, and also some big thunderstorms in Oregon and parts of Idaho that also caused some wind damage, some winds gusting 60 and 70 miles an hour. We'll talk more about those areas in a bit. Let's first of all talk about the tropics. And when we talk the tropics, this is really the biggest weather story of the whole day, and that is a brand new tropical depression which formed as we headed through the day on Tuesday. This is tropical depression number 6, and when we look at the big picture here, it is centered right in here, and that's pretty close to the U.S., so it's something we have to really watch very closely. Although it is a very broadly disorganized area of low pressure, nonetheless it has the potential to develop into perhaps even a tropical storm in the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I briefly wanted to show you a weak tropical wave moving through the Leeward Islands, causing some squally weather there. And then as we head out over the Atlantic, things quiet until we get into a big tropical wave, which is moving just west of the Cape Verde Islands at the present time. So let's talk about our depression, the 6th of the Atlantic hurricane season. The previous 5 have all gone on to become named tropical storms and or hurricanes. This one, we'll have to wait and see. This is probably the most poorly organized of all 6. 35-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds. It is not moving very much at all. It's stationary. The pressure at 999 millibars from the Air Force reservists and the hurricane hunters that were flying out there during the day Tuesday. 25.5 north, 94.5 west. That's our best estimate at the present time, but there may be a couple of centers. You may remember back to Earl that when it was developing, there were actually a couple different centers, and we had to keep relocating the center until things finally got going. That may be the same deal with Tropical Depression 6. From High Island all the way down to Brownsville, Texas, there are tropical storm warnings. Now, again, we don't have a tropical storm yet. By the way, if TD6 does become a tropical storm, its name would be Francis. But it is forecast to become a tropical storm, hence the warnings that are up along the Texas Gulf Coast. And there are some coastal flood advisories with our flow around the depression centered off to the south here. The flow is coming in from the east-southeast from High Island over to the lower Atchafalaya River Basin. That is where some of the bayou country could get some overwash, particularly during the times of high tide. And our satellite perspective showing a very broad area here of disorganized thunderstorm action, or convection as we call it. Most of the real heavy thunderstorms are on the east side of where we think the broad area of low pressure is, although we are getting a bit of a flare-up of thunderstorms here on the west side. And notice this little bluish area denoting some higher cloud tops right on the Texas coastal areas. We've had some Doppler radar estimates of upwards of 3 and 4 inches of rain there just south of Corpus Christi. So we are getting some moisture on shore. Now, how did that radar sneak in there like that? All right, that's a radar from a little bit earlier. Let's go ahead and show you the rest of the Caribbean. Again, depression centered up here. There actually may be another low pressure center down here in the Bay of Campeche, so we'll have to wait and see which one pretty much takes over for this system. The rest of the Caribbean, pretty quiet. A little bit of shearing action going on in the middle of the Caribbean. But here's that weak tropical wave moving through the Leeward Islands, and again, no signs of any organization there at the present time. As we head out into the rest of the Atlantic, things are fairly quiet until we head over to the African coast. Now, there is a bit of a low pressure area, low level circulation moving through the Cape Verde Islands. This system looked very impressive as it came off the African coast yesterday. Now most of the thunderstorm action is well off to the south, but it's such a very broad area of circulation that it's something that'll have to be watched closely as it heads toward the west. Nothing imminent though. And as we head into the Pacific, we have a tropical storm Javier, but it's barely hanging on at 40 miles an hour. A lot of shear going on with this system. It's just kind of hanging out south of the Baja. If the shear lessens, it could strengthen. We'll keep you advised on that as well. Keep it tuned here to the Weather Channel for the latest on Tropical Depression 6. We'll give you the latest. Coming up next, though, your local weather.
Everybody has suffered from the effects of a bad night's sleep, whether from minor back pain, heartburn, or just because you can't get comfortable. And the constant tossing and turning at night can make you feel like you're in the middle of a cliffhanger. We at Sleep Comfort want to mail you our free video and brochure showing how our adjustable bed can give you that better night's sleep you've always dreamed about. Our soothing massage and pillow top mattress gives you the feeling you're in a tropical paradise. And the dream gets better, because now adjustable beds have become affordable for everyone. With no money down, our Jubilee model is only $19 per month. And we give you 90 days to sleep on our bed with no risk. If you don't like it, send it back. So call now to receive this free video and brochure about the adjustable bed that only costs $19 per month and comes with a free 90-day in.
Good morning. It's time now for Storm Watch. Yesterday we saw some powerful thunderstorms tearing across the Carolinas. And again today there is a chance for a few strong thunderstorms over some parts of the country. In the meantime though, let's see what's happening in the tropics. It's time for the tropical update. And right now all eyes are focused on the Gulf of Mexico, where we have a newly formed tropical depression. It's the sixth one of the season. And this tropical depression across the Gulf of Mexico is very, very poorly organized. At the time being, we see clusters of showers and thunderstorms, clusters of deep convection, but again, they're scattered about. Nothing is really concentrated. And for the most part, most of the shower and thunderstorm activity does remain separated from the main center of circulation. And that's something else to consider, because we don't really know one main center. We have multiple centers perhaps with this tropical depression. It appears as if there could be a center of circulation maybe right about here or so. Yesterday, though, there were signs of another tropical center right around this general area. And then it appears as if the mid-level center of circulation may be somewhere a little bit farther towards the south over the Bay of Campeche. So again, it's a very poorly organized system. At any rate, though, it remains over some very, very warm ocean waters, some very warm water temperatures across this region. And also upper-level winds do look rather favorable. So there is a possibility for some further strengthening to take place with this tropical depression. And if it does become a named system, it would be called Tropical Storm Francis. But again, right now it's very poorly organized, but we'll likely see the wind and the rain, though, picking up across the western Gulf, especially over portions of Texas throughout the day today. Here's the latest information that we have. The depression is now roughly centered about 175 miles east of Brownsville, Texas, still packing winds of 35 miles per hour and holding nearly stationary. The official forecast, though, indicates that we might see a slow kind of west-northwestward drift, though, taking place a little bit later on today. At any rate, again, tropical storm warnings remain in effect from High Island, Texas, and running southward towards Brownsville. Especially within this zone, maybe some high seas, some crashing waves, and some perhaps locally heavy rains developing. And we currently have some coastal flood watches in effect for portions of south central Texas. So again, the possibility does exist for some locally heavy rains later on today over portions of Texas. Here's another satellite perspective. Again, we have our tropical depression in the Gulf. As we head out towards the Caribbean, though, things are looking relatively quiet. A fairly nice start to the day over parts of Cuba and Jamaica, likewise around Hispaniola. A little bit farther towards the east, though, we've been tracking a tropical wave that worked its way across the Lesser Antilles yesterday. It continues to propagate towards the west, but this one's very weak and very poorly organized, and the shower and thunderstorm development that we saw yesterday continues to weaken. So again, a very poorly organized system coming in across the eastern Caribbean. Now a little further upstream, though, we've had a few more disturbances coming in, and one in particular, though, a tropical wave just rolling off the African coast. And this one does appear to have some type of circulation along with it. Perhaps some mid-level circulation right around the Cape Verde Islands this morning. More cloudy skies and some convection with it. So it's something that we'll watch rather closely as it continues to move towards the west. In the meantime, though, in the eastern Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Javier. This one with winds of 40 miles per hour. This one also not moving very quickly. And right now it's undergoing quite a bit of wind shear, and we anticipate further weakening to be taking place. Maybe not in the near future, but there is a chance that it may weaken and could perhaps become a tropical depression. Here's the center, or at least what appears to be the center, and some deep convection still right now, but Overall, it appears to be slowly trying to weaken around that area. Now elsewhere, as we head stateside, the main feature continues to be this front that's sagging down towards the Gulf coastal region, and it has brought a noticeable change in the weather. A big drop with the temperature and a big drop too with the humidity levels. And what that means is that it's going to be a very comfortable day for some outdoor plans across the entire eastern half of the country. One fly in the ointment, though, is that we have a little low-pressure area pulling up towards the Canadian Maritimes and a stiff circulation behind that low pressure, some strong northwesterly winds flowing in across the eastern lakes and across New England, and that has been touching off some scattered showers. Nothing terribly heavy, but definitely a day for the umbrellas around Buffalo and Watertown and back over towards Caribou and Holton, Maine. And we also have another storm system, though, coming in across the Pacific Northwest and the Intermountain West. And there, too, we've been seeing some scattered showers and some thunderstorms. So again, a fairly active weather pattern for some parts of the country, with the rains picking up today from Montana back towards the Sacramento Valley. And certainly the rains will be picking up throughout the western Gulf as that circulation continues around our tropical depression and that moisture continues to migrate over towards the Texas coastal bend. So again, a very wet pattern towards the Gulf Coast, but nice weather today for Chicago, Detroit, and beautiful weather too for Nashville and Atlanta. Stay tuned, we'll have more updates about what's happening in the Gulf coming up.
We're keeping a close eye on a new tropical depression in the Gulf of Mexico that could affect coastal areas. A full report next on Weather Center after your local forecast.
How come so many professional...
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. I'm Marshall Cease. It's 10 minutes before the top of the hour. We're going to detail where you might expect some severe weather later this afternoon, and we're also going to cover the tropics for you. This Storm Watch is sponsored by Home Depot. Some funnel clouds have been sighted just north of the Corpus Christi International Airport, and that is just perhaps a precursor of things to come. We have Tropical Depression number 6 in the Gulf of Mexico, could become Tropical Storm Francis later today. Let's take a look at the tropics now and give you an update on the situation in the Gulf of Mexico. And you're going to want to stay with us for the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. Dr. Steve Lyons is in our forecast center with Bruce Edwards at the top of the hour to explain some of what's going on out here in the Gulf of Mexico, because at first observance it certainly looks like a lot is going on out here with convection patches in the eastern Gulf, over in the western Gulf and to the south, and that's what these infrared satellite pictures indicate. The higher top clouds, of course, the red ones indicating the colder cloud tops, generally indicative of the greatest amount of convection or thunderstorm activity. Visible satellite pictures in tropical situations show much more because you can see what's really happening without infrared enhancement. However, right now it looks as though the center of circulation for Tropical Depression number 6 is out in this region with most of the convection to its north. Now there's also been some buoy information to the north of some very strong winds, and some of the information coming from some of the oil rigs south of the Louisiana and East Texas coast. Tropical Depression number 6 is centered at 25.6 north and 94.7 west. It's about 175 miles east of Brownsville, Texas. Its winds 35 miles per hour, nearly stationary. Pressure in the last couple of hours has dropped to about 998 millibars. That's a 1 millibar drop. And its central pressure also in inches is 29.47. So that puts it right there, just in that little corner of the latitude and longitude lines that you see here, which is representative of 25 north and 95 west. Here's Brownsville, here's High Island. We have tropical storm warnings in effect down to the Rio Grande River, and we also have coastal flood advisories that have been issued from the lower Atchafalaya River, to High Island, and then southward to Freeport, a coastal flood watch in effect. This area is so broad, all of the winds out of the east, and the water and the coastal flooding is going to be a problem all along the Gulf Coast, not just where Tropical Depression 6 is forecast to move, which is generally in a west-northwesterly direction. So folks ought to monitor the situation all along the Gulf Coast. We have high pressure also from the north that is moving southward, and that high pressure coupled with low pressure in the Gulf will set up a pressure gradient along the Gulf Coast, which could mean substantial winds, perhaps tropical storm force winds in gusts at least later today as that high deepens, and we're going to see some flooding probably along the coast of Louisiana, perhaps even a little further to the east. We've had as much as 5 inches of rain south of Corpus Christi and north of Brownsville, Texas over the last 24 hours. More rain is rotating onshore. It will continue much of the day today. Seas here are running about 2 feet above normal tide, and winds have been gusting to about just over 25 miles an hour, maybe 25 to 30 miles per hour. And there's plenty of more rain out here, and the moisture deepness or the moisture depth is very deep. It just means that lots of rain can fall from these tropical rainstorms. This is a close-up radar, shows the rain north of Corpus Christi, southward of Brownsville. And again, we've had some funnel clouds that have been sighted to the north of the Corpus Christi International Airport, generally moving in a southwesterly direction, generally indicative of that counterclockwise circulation around low pressure at the surface. Western Caribbean, not a lot's going on here. As we check a little further to the east and head out toward the mid-Atlantic, we have a wave that's just crossed over the Lesser Antilles, leading edge just about at Puerto Rico now. And the visible satellite pictures, which you'll see in a couple of hours, will show a tremendous amount of African dust that has made it all the way across the Atlantic with that. This wave is carrying some dust with it as well. We're going to be monitoring this one over the next couple of days too for possible development over time, but that's a long way away. Here's Tropical Storm Javier, 20.5 north, 111.6 west, showing very little movement either, just like Tropical Depression number 6. Its convection is well to the west of the center.
Tropical Depression number 6 is spinning in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're closely tracking its progress. When and where it could impact coastal areas, next on Weather Center.
This program was sponsored by the Home Depot.
Guaranteed low prices at the Home Depot.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. I'm Marshall C. It's about 10 minutes before the top of the hour. You're tuned to Storm Watch. Talk about where you might encounter some severe weather today, although it looks like a day that severe weather may not occur. You can still see some strong storms, but there's no likelihood for any big centers for severe weather today. The big story, of course, is the tropical depression in the Gulf of Mexico. Tropical Depression number 6. Now, it's a very broad area of low pressure sitting in the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of convection that is fired up in the Gulf of Mexico over the last 36 hours, and this broad area of low pressure has been sitting out here for several days. The upper level dynamics are such that it is conducive to further development. High pressure aloft. There is a center of circulation that reconnaissance aircraft has been able to define, and we'll tell you where those coordinates are in just a moment. It's going to affect a wide area. Could even affect as far east as the panhandle of Florida, with some rain squalls perhaps. Coastal flooding, though, advisories are issued from just about the south coast of Louisiana at about New Orleans eastward toward the Texas coastal bend. And the track of Tropical Depression 6 is to the west-northwest. So just monitor the situation very closely if you live anywhere along the Texas coastal bend today. There's been very heavy rain over the last 24 hours too. Totals 4 to 5 inches yesterday between Corpus Christi and Brownsville, and we expect a similar situation today. There's the center of Tropical Depression 6, 94.7 west, about 25.6 north. It's moved about 5 miles closer to Brownsville, Texas, in about the last, since the last advisory. 35-mile-per-hour winds, nearly stationary, of course, 998 millibars of pressure. And it is forecast to strengthen over the next 12 hours to tropical storm strength, and then begin to make a little more of a concerted move perhaps to the west-northwest. But it is a slow mover, and it's not so much the center of the tropical system as it is the broad area that it's going to affect. There are tropical storm warnings that have been in effect for some time from High Island, Texas to Brownsville, Texas. That means that tropical storm force winds, that's winds in excess of 39 miles per hour, could be felt here. And we've seen some strong gusts out on Padre Island near Corpus Christi this morning during some live shots from that area. We also have coastal flood advisories, warnings from the lower Atchafalaya River to High Island, Texas, and to Freeport, Texas. We have coastal flood watches that are in effect. Now, another perspective showing the infrared technology, or the infrared enhanced satellite picture, shows you where the greatest concentration of convection is, and it is to the north and east of the circulation, which is in this area, again about 170 miles east of Brownsville, Texas. Wide area being affected. We've even had some special marine advisories for the south coast of Louisiana here earlier this morning, with some very strong thunderstorms that have been headed to the north. In general, though, the storms and rain bands have been moving around in a counterclockwise circulation along the Texas coastal bend and bringing some thunderstorms in from the northeast headed toward the southwest. That's what's been occurring from Victoria, Texas to Corpus Christi and Brownsville. Heavier rain falling now along the coast between Brownsville and Corpus Christi. We do anticipate coastal flooding to be a problem. The statements out of Brownsville, Texas have indicated that they are experiencing coastal flooding right now. Tides running about 2 feet above normal, and seas have really been churned up out in the Gulf of Mexico too. Had some reports last night of 8 to 10 foot seas out near this region, near where the center of circulation is. Western Caribbean is looking in pretty good shape right now, and out in the mid-Atlantic, had a wave we watched yesterday move across the Lesser Antilles, taking an edge of some of that African dust that moved out of the Sahara region toward Puerto Rico this morning. And further out, we're going to be watching this area because of that big area of convection that moved off the African coast yesterday for signs of circulation or signs of organization over time. We still have Tropical Storm Javier as well. Javier not moving much either. We're also monitoring this situation for you.
Some areas along the Gulf Coast already feel the effects of Tropical Depression number 6. An update on its development and potential path next on Weather Center.
Why is America on America Online?
Instant messages.
It's the internet and a whole lot more. We've spent over $1 billion to create a state-of-the-art network. And now with 56K, connection